Hi. So today, we're going to do something really special. At least to me. We're going to look at the episodes of Ninja Turtles that made me a fan. That being Turtles in Space. And I will explain why I have secret origins right here, but yeah, as part of celebrating 40 years of Ninja Turtles, I thought it'd be a great idea to tell people what made me a fan. And without further ado, let's get to it. The first episode in the storyline starts off on an unknown planet where we see a robot being chased down by soldiers into an alleyway, and one of the soldiers refers to this thing as a Fugitoid, and that someone named General Blank wants it alive. But then out of nowhere, the Ninja Turtles get beamed down right in front of everybody, and the Turtles are really confused as to what happened. And if you want to know what happened, go watch Season 1. And the soldiers point their guns at them, and the Ninja Turtles do what they do best. They fight, and this is actually a pretty cool opening fight, and it's also a bit humorous, seeing as how these are highly trained soldiers with guns, and they can't even fight four people with ninja weapons cornered in an alleyway. And while fighting, the robot we saw earlier breaks down a wall trying to escape, but however, he is grateful to the Ninja Turtles and offers to lend them a hand, and they accept mostly because more soldiers are coming and they're about to be outnumbered soon, which leads them running through a building trying to get away until they reach the roof. But Leonardo then notices a garbage truck which they all jump onto in order to escape. And while on the truck, the turtles get a good view of their surroundings where they learn they're not exactly on planet Earth anymore. Thankfully, the truck stops at a farmer's market where they get off, and the Fugitoid fills them in that they're on the planet known as Dahunin, and it's under the territory of the Federation, which is who those soldier guys work for. And right as they try to figure out what to do next, more soldiers come after them, which, of course, they are ready to fight, until they see they brought a tank. So the turtles make their way to a fruit stand to try and hide, but when the Federation goes to check on it, they see that they've disappeared. Where to? Where else? The sewer. And when they get down there, Mikey notices two things. One, the sewers here are surprisingly clean, and second, this pretty funny visual gag about how this planet is kind of similar to Earth in one particular way. After that funny little detour, Donatello asks the Fugitoid why they're after him, and he begins to tell them his origins. He first started off as a man named Professor Honeycutt who developed weapons for the Federation. Not intentionally, of course, he only did it because they funded his other research. And at the time, he recently developed a mind-enhancing device. And while he was working on it, the general called him asking to build a teleportal weapon. Okay, it wasn't really a weapon, it was meant for peace, but however, the general wants to weaponize it. And in good conscience, the professor said no. Later that night, Professor found his robot assistant trapped in some wires, and when he tried to set him free, they were both struck by lightning, and because of this, his body was destroyed and went into the robot. And unfortunately, the general saw this and decided to put a hit out on the robot, mostly because robots have no rights on this planet, and, well, since he's a robot with the information he wants him captured, and that's why the Federation is after him. And after hearing this, the turtles get the idea to have the professor build it just so they can get back to planet Earth. And before they could discuss this further with him, they start questioning again how exactly the sewers here are so clean, and they get their answer in the form of this really creepy looking robot, which thankfully doesn't take too much effort to take down. We then cut to the Federation's base where we see that General Blank is getting more frustrated that they can't find the Fugitoid. However, due to the turtles in the sewer destroying that one machine, they were able to track their exact location. And then his secretary starts asking him why he wants the teleportal so bad, and it's mostly because he starts listing off a bunch of ways to use it, mostly involving dropping nukes on enemy planets. It's kind of horrible. And she even points out that if anyone were to ever know about the idea to use it this way, anyone would want it, especially their enemies. We then cut back to the turtles just leaving the sewer, and Leonardo points out that they really need to get out of the city as soon as possible, so he asks Raphael to find some transportation, and Michelangelo follows, mostly because he wants something to eat. And Raphael, on the other hand,
he ends up deciding to steal a Federation tank, which I'll admit is kind of a cool idea. We then cut back to Mikey, who more or less finds what he thinks he can eat on this planet, but before he can eat it, he gets spotted by Federation soldiers, and when he tries to run away, he runs into a tank, but it's thankfully the same tank that Raphael stole. And after grabbing everyone else, they think they could just drive by undetected. Except for the fact that the guy they drove by happened to be the same person Raphael stole the tank from, so oops. We then get a brief little tank battle, which ends with the tank they're in blowing up, but since they don't find any evidence they were still in the tank, they're still wanted criminals. We then cut to a dark alley where we see that General Blank's secretary was actually leaking information to an enemy alien species, and I'm just gonna say it, I love the reveal of what this guy looks like.
First things first, my friend. My superiors are very interested in the teleportal. Tell me everything you know about this Fugitoid. Everything.
Okay, so far that was episode 1. Pretty good start. And I do love the mystery at the beginning where you kind of have no idea what happened with the Ninja Turtles. I mean, granted, they do kind of talk about it, but other than that, like, you're kind of left in the dark and it makes it kind of mysterious and fun. And believe it or not, I have read the original comics through this compilation. I don't have it with me on hand right now. And yeah, some of the dialogue from the beginning of the Turtles just showing up is actually from the book. Cool, huh? Here's another interesting tidbit. You know the Fugitoid? Well, if you want to know something cool about his name, it's actually a mixture of the words fugitive and android. Put them together, you got Fugitoid. And here's an interesting deviation from the comics, because in here, his body was destroyed and the General saw what happened. But in the original comic, the General didn't see what happened. Okay, at first, they say later he did, but at first, no one saw what happened, so the robot was framed for murder, and that's why he was on the run. Oh, and another funny thing I noticed when rewatching this episode, yeah, in the opening fight when the Turtles go to fight the soldiers, Leonardo's headband is painted orange instead of blue. I don't know why, that's just a funny little animation error I noticed. Despite all that, let's get to episode 2.
The next episode starts off with the Turtles still in hiding from the Federation, and while trying to figure out what to do next, Mikey starts complaining that he's hungry, and granted they've been running and hiding all day, so it would make sense. And the Fugitoid recommends they try and get off the planet as soon as possible, but since they're all technically fugitives right now, they'll have to resort to less legal means. We then cut back to the Federation where we see that they actually started putting up wanted posters of all the turtles in the Fugitoid, and we also see that the one person is still leaking information to another alien race. However, she now wants more money for it, which he's willing to pay because after learning what you can do with the teleportal device, he kind of has no choice. We then go back to the Turtles who are trying to sneak into a shady looking place to hopefully get some transport off the planet. But since there's wanted posters of them everywhere, they need disguises, which doesn't take too long for them to find. And when they go inside, Mikey wanders off to see if he can get something to eat, but nothing here is exactly edible, at least to him, and we get a weird bit where an alien starts hitting on Mikey thinking he's a woman, which eventually leads to him kicking him in the face, and also blowing his cover. And the timing couldn't be any more worse, because right as they find some Star Wars ripoff characters to hopefully give them a ride, the Federation stormed the place trying to look for them, and while they try to sneak through the back, they get cornered, leaving them no other option but to fight back. And as they do, another alien race comes in looking for the Fugitoid, leading to a massive shootout. And while ducking for cover, the Fugitoid explains to the Turtles that these creatures are known as Triceratons and that they are also at war with the Federation. And it's also around this time where we see that Donatello rigged up a Federation blaster to explode a table, causing them to escape. But before all of them can make it, the Fugitoid gets captured by the Triceratons. And the Turtles, not wanting to lose their only way back to Earth, decide to hotwire a car and follow them. But the Triceratons had people ready to attack anyone that could be chasing after them, and since their vehicle doesn't have weapons, they easily rip it apart, causing them to crash in the middle of the forest. And after somehow surviving the crash, Leo gets bummed out that they lost their only way back home, but Donnie raises his spirits by telling him that he actually placed a tracker on the Fugitoid just in case something like this happens. And when they follow it, it leads to a small war zone where we see the Federation fighting the Triceratons over the Fugitoid. And when they see the Fugitoid getting taken into a bunker, they of course follow, but when they go in, they realize the place doesn't really seem too much like a bunker, and that's actually because the thing is actually a spaceship. And when it takes off into space, it ends up getting damaged, and the room that the turtles were in inside the ship ends up breaching a hole, causing them to almost fly into space. And they do patch the hole, however, the problem is all the air that they had ends up getting sucked into space as well. And the episode kind of ends on a dark note with the turtles supposedly suffocating to death in zero gravity.
And that was episode 2. And believe it or not, this was the very first episode of Turtles in Space I ever saw. And it was literally the ending scene where the turtles was floating in space, supposedly dead. Yeah, and this is what led to me wanting to see what happened next, and part of why I really like this show. It was the very first time I ever went out of my way to see what happened next on a TV show, because as a kid, I would just change the channel and go, oh, okay, I want to watch that. No. But with this, I really wanted to see what happened. It was awesome. Anyways, let's get to episode 3.
Episode 3 starts out with the ship from earlier flying toward a space station, and the captain of the ship tells the Fugitoid that he knows about everything inside of him, including the knowledge of the teleportal device. And after doing so, he then asks his crew to check the ship for damages when they land. And when they do go to check to see if anything was damaged, they do see that yes, the hull has been breached. And yet they also find the Ninja Turtles. One of them does check, and yes, they are still alive. And the reason being is because they put themselves in a meditative state to survive the lack of oxygen, or what little there is. And after that, Mikey gets the idea that since they've landed, there's air again. But the Triceratons don't exactly breathe oxygen.
We Triceratons breathe a hearty mixture of nitrogen and sulfur.
And since they're stowaways, they get captured and taken into custody. As well as the giant rock they're flying on, flying toward an even bigger version of it. And this is known as the Triceraton Homeworld, where the Fugitoid gets an audience with the High Council, as well as the Prime Leader. And it's here where the Prime Leader does offer the Fugitoid protection from the Federation, as well as full rights as a citizen of the Triceraton Empire. However, due to him being hesitant about building the teleportal, he refuses. And as the Prime Leader gets more frustrated with him saying no, he then gets a call from the ship's crew showing that they captured the Ninja Turtles as long as giving them air breathers just so they can survive the atmosphere. And when the Fugitoid blurts that they're his friends, the Prime Leader gives them an ultimatum. Either build the weapon, or they die within 24 hours. We then cut to the Turtles who are being taken into prison, and as they're being escorted, they see one guy pleading to not be taken to the games. And when they ask about it, the one guard just says they're better off not knowing what it is. And as they go deeper into the prison, they get restraints put on them, which are pretty much these magnet glowy hand things. I don't really know how to describe them. As well as these little tattoos that electrocute them if they ever try to fight back or escape. Later in the day, the prisoners are let out to eat, and it's here where we meet a bunch of other aliens that are trapped here. And Mikey ends up bumping into a really big guy named Rhinox, who Raphael almost picks a fight with, but another alien stops him, saying they're better off befriending him, seeing how he's technically prison king of the cell block. And when they get to the cafeteria, the alien also tells them that the main currency here is desserts, and when Mikey thinks he's about to eat some, he tells him it's not, it's actually floor wax, which causes him to vomit, but I can't really blame Mikey here since all the dispensers look the same. We then cut to the Fugitoid, who's still trying to justify building the teleportal device. And on the one hand, if he builds it, he'll help the turtles get home, but at the cost of giving it to conquerors who could destroy literally God knows how many planets. But if he doesn't build it, his friends will be executed anyway, so yeah, he's kind of at a stalemate right now. We then cut back to the turtles, who are discussing an escape plan with stuff they stole before getting thrown back in their cell. And the main plan involves getting out and going to the drainage system, hopefully to scale the outer wall. What to do after, they don't really say. However, one of the things they really need for this plan to work is a keycard, which Mikey says he'll get onto. And with all that, they plan to break out tonight. During their next chow time, Donatello puts together a crudely made smoke bomb that should go off in 6 hours, so when the plan should be going. However, it's around here that Rhinox starts asking everyone for their food rations, and also ends up pushing Raph the wrong way, causing him to kick him in the face, and during the chaos, Leo tries to swipe a keycard but just misses, and we end up getting a pretty cool prison fight between Raph and Rhinox, and after Raph wins, he gets electrocuted and thrown into solitary confinement. Back in their prison cell, they retweak the plan, so when they get out, they also have to stop and go get Raphael out of solitary confinement. However, the problem is they still don't have a keycard to deactivate their harnesses, and Leo gets the idea that if a prisoner is sick, they can still come and go see them, and since they need someone to look sick, they force Mikey to eat floor wax. And when they do stop to check on him, he hurls all over one of the guards. And as the guard beats Mikey for doing something gross, the smoke bomb goes off and they leave. And they realize they forgot to swipe the key card. But luckily for them, Mikey somehow managed to get one in his mouth. Yeah, don't ask. Nonetheless, they are able to deactivate their cuffs and get their electric tattoos removed, as well as escape their cell. And when they think they found Raphael, it was technically a broom closet. Either way, they do take some stuff from there to use as makeshift ninja weapons, and thankfully find Raphael shortly after. We then cut back to the Fugitoid, who gets a visit from the Prime Leader saying his time is up and that he's going to execute one of the turtles. However, he sees they've already escaped. Pretty good timing, seeing as how they had no idea about the execution. And then we cut to the courtyard where the turtles think they're home free. However, they get spotted and all the guards come in to fight them. But not before trying to activate their restraints first, not realizing they've already been removed. And with this, the turtles get ready for battle. All jokes aside, the turtles put up a really good fight with these weapons. And it also ties back to a lesson Leo learned earlier in Season 1, where Splinter said any weapon could be used effectively if in the right hands, and yeah, they're using these cleaning supplies surprisingly well, and they actually take out the guards, until they start showing up with guns, but don't worry, they're set to stun, mostly because the Prime Leader wants them alive to be sent to the games. And when they get there, they see the giant gladiator arena where they're being forced to fight a giant tentacle monster with no eyes, ending the episode.
And that was episode 3. And I really do like it. Like, the whole prison escape thing, I just thought was a really fun idea. And there was one part that kind of makes me laugh when I look back on it. And it's the part where the turtles were getting their restraints in the prison. I only find it funny because to us it's high-tech machinery, but to the guy operating the machine, he's just so bored with his job he could care less. I don't know why that's funny to me. Anyways, let's get to part 4.
Part 4 picks up right where the last episode left off, with the turtles still in the games, and this time we see they have announcers. And the thing they have to fight now is still that giant tentacle monster we saw before. And we also see that the Fugitoid is being forced to watch, and the Prime Leader says he will call off the match if he agrees to build the teleportal. But in good conscience, he still says no. And luckily for the turtles, after getting beat up over and over again, they get the idea to trick the creature into running into a wall and causing a statue to crush him, practically having them win the match, and angering the Prime Leader. So in response, he throws the turtles into a pit full of other gladiators just so they can keep fighting until they either die, escape, or the Fugitoid builds the weapon. And we also see with this group of fighters, there's also a Triceraton among them. His name is Draximus, and he's actually highly respected amongst the other gladiators. And we also meet another Triceraton named Gruel, who the turtles quickly make fun of, so in response, he forces the turtles to be the new practice dummies for the other gladiators. And when they start practicing, the turtles actually take them all out without their weapons, thankfully. And since this angers him, he forces the other gladiators to use better weapons to take them out, and also offers more food rations to whoever succeeds. And with this, the turtles actually do have a bit more of a struggle to fight these guys. However, in response, they do take some of their weapons to use for themselves, which does help. And later on, Raphael ends up helping Donatello, which angers Gruel because to him, gladiators fight to the death, no helping. So in response, Raphael throws him in what I assume to be feces, and when Leo defeats Draximus, he actually begs for him to take his own life, but Leo spares him in the end. Later on during lunchtime, Gruel openly doesn't make enough food rations for everybody, so the turtles end up hungry. But thankfully for them, all the other fighters start sharing their food, and when Leo asks about this, Draximus said that's because they showed everyone how to fight honorably and not without having to kill each other, so in the end, they end up earning all their respect. Which then leads into Leo asking how Draximus got in here, seeing how he himself is a Triceraton. And he goes on to explain how the Triceratons used to be an honorable race, until the Prime Leader came into power and turned it all into a dictatorship, and when he spoke out about it, he was thrown in here as punishment for speaking out. We then, out of nowhere, cut to the Galactic Federation, who have assembled an armada to hopefully recapture the Fugitoid from the Triceratons. Back at the arena, we see that the Prime Leader wants the Fugitoid to watch the turtles get killed in person, and when we see the other gladiators getting ready to fight, Gruel refuses to give the turtles weapons, but thankfully, Draximus has a gift for them.
I still have some friends in the Triceraton Armed Forces. I managed to get these for you.
Our weapons!
We then cut to the gladiator arena where we see that the Prime Leader has forced the Fugitoid to watch as his friends will get killed. But as the match starts proper, the gladiators refuse to fight, and so as punishment he forces them into a weird room next to the arena, and he gives the Fugitoid one more chance to build the device. And when he refuses again, he sends in the Elite Guard, or at least the All-Star Warriors of the Gladiator Arena. And when the match begins proper, the fight between the Turtles and the Triceratons is kinda one-sided. I mean, yeah, they struggle at first because of how big they are compared to them, but since they have their weapons and it's more or less on even terms, the Turtles end up winning. And this angers the Prime Leader to the point where he just flat-out asks for them to be executed anyways. So in retaliation, the turtles end up hijacking one of the camera hover cars, don't ask, and they make it to the Prime Leader's seating arrangements, and they end up holding him hostage, threatening to kill him if they don't comply, which ends up bringing an end to episode 4 of the storyline.
Okay, so that was part 4, and I gotta say, I'm still really enjoying this, because even though they're adding new characters by having them get thrown into the gladiator arena, they're all pretty interesting. Granted, we don't know much about them. I just think they have really cool designs. But however, the one Triceraton Draximus was one I really liked, and if you were wondering what happened to him, don't worry, he got free because of all the commotion the turtles caused, and would go on to start a resistance against the Prime Leader, which the turtles would eventually join, but that's another story. And yeah, the idea of them using the Prime Leader as a hostage to get out is pretty cool. Alright, let's move on to the final part of this storyline.
Part 5 picks up immediately where the last one left off, with the turtles still holding the Prime Leader hostage at the Gladiator Arena, and, well, the commentators are still, commentating. And they eventually have convinced the Prime Leader to take them to the Fugitoid's lab while still holding him hostage as a human shield just so they won't fire at them. But after a few seconds, they start firing anyway. After convincing the Prime Leader to take them to the Fugitoid's lab, they eventually make it there rather quickly and start barricading themselves inside and gathering materials just so the professor can build the device. He is still hesitant, but Leo gives the idea of transporting the device and himself to Earth as well, just so they can hide there and live peacefully. And Donatello also recommends a pretty horrible way to get the information, which honestly is kind of hilarious seeing how the Prime Leader didn't think of it.
What's to stop them from ripping apart your robot body and downloading all the data from your brain?
Slag! Why didn't I think of that?
Good one, Don. I'm sorry.
Immediately after hearing this, the Fugitoid literally contemplates blowing his own head off to make sure the information goes into no one's hands. But after some convincing, he does agree to build it to help the turtles, but on one condition. If anything goes horribly wrong or if capture seems inevitable, he begs them to destroy him, and he even begs on their honor, and since they don't have many options, and given how they're honorable people, they agree to the terms. Which then leads into asking the Prime Leader where the fastest way out of this place is, and he does tell them, but unbeknownst to them, he also tells one of his high generals this information as well, so there's an ambush waiting for them, unfortunately. And right on cue, as they get there, they immediately start getting shot at, which leads into a pretty fun gun war between the Turtles and the Triceratons, and right as they're about to make it to the Prime Leader's personal cruiser, he ends up accidentally getting broken free and they end up losing a hostage. But given how time is of the essence, they decide to just leave him behind, board the ship, and get out of there as soon as they can. And right as they leave, some Triceraton troops start following them, but thankfully due to some clever flying maneuvers by the Fugitoid, they are able to evade them, and with that they're home free. Until they fly past an asteroid and see the entire Triceraton fleet waiting for them, so yeah, not so home free. And given how many times they've survived death in space right now, they decide to just fly right through the Armada and hopefully not get shot down, and after flying through an asteroid field, they do eventually make it free again. However, once again, they're under the false implication that they're safe, because right as they're about to fly into open space, the Federation shows up. So now, instead of trying to escape, they decide to just lead the Federation to the Triceratons and hope they'll just keep fighting long enough for them to just build the teleportal device on an asteroid and hopefully they can get out of there during the ensuing chaos. Then we get a kind of humorous bit where General Blank tells the Triceratons that the reason he knew where the Turtles were is because the Gladiator match they were in was actually televised and it's actually a really popular show on Dahunin. So in response, he tells General Blank that they knew about the teleportal device because one of his soldiers was actually leaking the information to them, and the person who leaked the intel gets captured. We then cut to the Turtles on the asteroid where we see that half of them are helping the professor build the teleportal device, while the other half are staying on the ship watching for enemy ships, and they see that both the Federation and the Triceratons are heading toward them. So Leo does a three-way call with the generals, hopefully trying to negotiate and also buy time for them. And they do offer to give up the Fugitoid in exchange for them using him for peace. But we learn through a pretty funny piece of dialogue that's not actually the case.
Once we have the teleportal, we hit the Federation with everything we've got.
The Federation is equally eager to avoid unnecessary conflict. Once we have the teleportal, we hit the Triceratons with everything we've got.
And since that went by quicker than expected, Leo does try to buy more time by narrowing down the deal. And in doing so, the two generals start arguing to the point where it just becomes entertainment for the both of them. And they do eventually ask if they bought enough time, and when ships start attacking, they quickly realize they barely have enough time to even finish it, let alone test the device. And when enemy ships start landing on the asteroid, they decide to just run into the teleporter and hope it works. Like, they did finish it, but like I said, they can't test it. And when they do activate it, it unfortunately doesn't work. So they decide to just run back to the ship and hopefully get out of there, but the ship blows up. So they just run back inside the teleporter for cover. And as the thing starts getting shot at, it breaks apart, leaving them vulnerable. And it's around here where the Fugitoid gives Leonardo an EMP generator in hopes that it will fry him and the teleportal information out of his brain, more or less killing him. And right as Leo hesitantly hits the button, they get beamed away to another planet. But where exactly do they end up? And the episode kind of just ends here, ending the Turtles in Space storyline.
And that was part 5. Yeah, I know it ends on a cliffhanger, but hey, it all comes full circle when you think about it. Like, it starts with them getting beamed into space, and this one it ends with them getting beamed somewhere else. And if you want to know what happened, well, the epilogue, or at least ending to the story, was the episode's secret origins. And if you want to know why I have the DVD here, it's because the Turtles in Space DVD only had parts 1 to 4. If you want to see part 5, you would have had to get the next volume. And for the longest time, I only had the first DVD, so I always had to resort to YouTube just to see the ending of the storyline. But nowadays, there is a complete series box set for the show that anyone can use, so that's good. And I just want to talk about these episodes of Ninja Turtles just because, Like I said, they're the reason I became a fan, and why I cherish Ninja Turtles so much, because this was such a good story. And yes, I did read the original comics again before making this video, and yeah, I'd say these episodes are a good adaptation. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of extra stuff, but it's extra stuff I legit like. And here's the funny thing, when they're using the Prime Leader as a hostage to get out, like, in the show, we saw him get out okay, but in the comics, he was shot down and killed on accident. It's actually kind of hilarious. Sort of. But that brings me to my next question. What made you a fan of Ninja Turtles? Was it one of the shows? One of the games? One of the movies? The toys? Comics? What was it? I'd like to know. For the first 5 people to share their answers, I'm going to reply to you, or at least give you a thumbs up. No joke, I am going to do it. Why? Because I'm in a good mood. And I do have 2 more Ninja Turtle videos planned for the year, and I hope you look forward to them. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.